Today we are going to talk about someone who became a professional chef at the age 40 and didn't start his business until he reached 62 and didn't become an icon until he sold his company at 75. If you think it's too late for you to make it, this video is for you. If you think you're too old to start all over again, this video is also for you. In this video, I will tell you the story behind the man who only made it at the age of 72. Colonel Sanders is probably the most recognizable icon in the fast food history. His face, which is now synonymous with fried chicken across America and the world. Harland David Sanders was born in September 9, 1890. After his father died when he was 6 years old, his mother had to find a job and start working to support the family. Sanders became responsible for feeding and taking care of his younger brother and sister. And that's when he started falling in love with cooking. When he was 10, he managed to find a job working at a farm in Greenwood. Then he made the choice of dropping out of school while only completing the 6th grade. When Sanders was 12, his mother remarried again and took her children to live with her new husband. Sanders ended up having a bad relationship with his stepdad, and they were fighting all the time. At the age of 13, Sanders was sent back to Clark County, where the family had first lived. At the age of 16, he faked his age to go in the United States Army. And in 1908, he married Josephine King, a woman with whom he had 3 children, Margaret, Harland Jr., and Mildred. Then he worked at the railway but got fired for fighting with a co-worker. While working for the railway, he studied law, but he didn't last long as a lawyer after he got in another fight with a co-worker and got fired again. And because of his inability to hold down a job, he had a lot of trouble back home, and Josephine ended up leaving him after a short time and taking the children with her. They divorced in 1947, and by the way, back then, getting a divorce was a big deal. It was highly unusual, and of course, it had to be tough for Sanders to handle such pain. Things kept on getting worse when he wasn't able to financially support himself, to the point that he had no choice other than moving back in with his mom. The good news that he found another job selling life insurance, but unfortunately he got fired from that job because he refused to obey the orders. Then comes his biggest tragedy when he got the news that his son Harland Jr. died at the age of 20 of complications from blood poisoning. Sanders suffered from depression for a long period of his adult life due to all the disappointments he went through. But Sanders knew that this wasn't the end. At the age of 40, he was a dreamer, and he refused to believe that this is what his life is going to be. Things finally started getting better when he chose to not give up and keep going, and started running a gas station in Kentucky. But the business was slow, so he started cooking and selling meals for the travelers who stopped at the station. The meals he served were simple. It consisted of fried chicken, beans, ham, and hot biscuits. His food gained wide popularity, and everyone was talking about how good of a cook he is. In that moment, he realized that this is an opportunity that he needs to take advantage of. and turned his gas station into a restaurant called Sanders Cafe. While working at the restaurant, he was able to develop his cooking skills. He started frying the chicken with 11 herbs and spices in a new device called pressure cooker, resulted in an amazing tasting meal. And in 1935, he got an offer to sell his restaurant for $164,000. Back then, that was a huge amount of money, but Colonel Sanders refused the idea of selling his restaurant and turned down the offer. After a few years, he noticed that his business is not doing as good as it used to be. He had less customers and his popularity started fading away. Sanders had no choice other than selling his restaurant, and the best offer he got was a check of $75,000, which was a lot less than the first offer he got a few years ago, but he took the offer anyways. In 1952, he made a deal with his friend to sell his chicken dish as Kentucky Fried Chicken in exchange for 4-cent royalty on every piece sold. After it became a top-selling item, Sanders made the same deal with different other local restaurants. At the age of 72, Sanders dedicated his last years to the franchising side of the project. In 1963, he had more than 600 restaurants across the US and Canada selling Kentucky Fried Chicken. And in 1965, he agreed to sell his rights for $2 million. And $2 million equals around $15 million nowadays. Under the contract, the company Kentucky Fried Chicken would establish its own restaurants around the world and would not on any cost compromise the chicken recipe. The group of people who know the KFC secret recipe are not allowed to tell or talk to anyone about the recipe. And after all these years, the KFC secret recipe is still a mystery. The contract also states that Sanders was to have a lifetime salary of $75,000, a seat on the board, majority ownership of KFC's Canadian franchises, and would serve as the company's brand ambassador. In 1950, the governor of Kentucky named him Colonel, the highest title of honor the state can give. Sanders began dressing the part with the white suit and Kentucky Colonel tie that would make him later on a pop culture icon. Sanders traveled 250,000 miles each year, visiting KFC locations and promoting the brand in the media. In his last years, he donated most of his wealth to charities such as the Salvation Army. And on December 1980, Sanders died of leukemia at the age of 90. In 1995, there were over 9,000 KFC outlets around the world, and now in 2020, there are 23,000 KFC outlets in more than 140 countries around the world. The purpose of this video was to remind you and remind myself that it's never too late. We all have our own timing. It doesn't matter if my classmate in college got a better job or a better car. They got that job because it was the right time for them to get the job, and your time will come. This is my philosophy and this is how I view life. If you agree with my perception of success, let me know in the comments down below. And if you don't agree with it, Then also tell me in the comments. I would love to know what you think. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.